it is just volunteer work when you first start a YouTube channel. You might spend 4 hours making a good video if you already know everything about it. But if you have to learn new stuff about a video, you're investing 6-8 hours editing time, re-recording things that you thought looked good but didn't.
Even though we're kind of small YouTubers, I think some of the comments are really rewarding.
Yes, that is, I think, the only reason that I continue doing it. I take screenshots of those comments, admittedly. That's literal gold, I think. They're from around the globe, India, US, Germany, Brazil, things like that. But they also don't have money to spend. It's a tough market to make it in, for being honest. But at the end of the day, so is our 9-to-5 jobs. We're tied to time put in, typically, and your salary that you get out. It's absurd. We take on extreme risk as creators all the time. And it comes in a couple different ways of spending hours editing videos for it to have like 40 views. It comes in the form of working with partners. That's been a big one for me.
Phil, what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Yusuf. It's been a long time. I think we've only chatted once before, and like with real voices, not over LinkedIn or some other messaging system, right?
Yeah, that's correct. By the way, sorry that it's 6 a.m. at your place. I thought it was 8 a.m., but it's like, did some miscalculation there.
With the time zones and daylight savings, it's hard to do, but I'm happy to be here. It was a 5:30 a.m. wake-up call, trim the beard, ready to go.
Awesome. So today, I'm not sure what we will talk about. I think most likely more about the influencer stuff. How is it like to be an influencer? Sounds like a disease though, but like what are the pros, what are the cons? And what does it actually take to become an influencer? And really that there's a lot of competition out there. And how do you set yourself apart from the competition? Maybe just first question to you, like how is it be to have a YouTube channel, for example? Like how did you get started? What was the initial motivation to start a YouTube channel?
Yeah, and the term influencer is a really interesting one. And
Yeah.
I wish there was a better term for what we do in terms of the education of programming languages. And I teach online courses. I like a educator notion or something like that. At the end of the day, we are viewed in that group as influencers. And
Yes.
the way I started was actually after I finished my undergrad degree in mechanical engineering. And it was when the big data, if you remember, like everyone was using that term, big data, all these businesses had so much data. What are we going to do with it? And I felt very left out of that wave because I was an engineer and we only learned MATLAB in our first semester of classes. And then we used it, I think, once or twice during our final year of college. And we have 4-year programs in the US. And I thought, you know what? It's a disservice to not know this language better. And so many engineers were scared of MATLAB and scared of programming that I took an initiative to make a very brief, basic overview, intro to MATLAB on YouTube and just put it out there and see what happens. Those videos are still there. They're not doing great. But what it did is it just started that momentum towards wanting to teach, wanting to give back to that community. And then eventually it started to pick up some steam from there.
Yeah. Like, did you just get started in the sense of like, I want to learn it myself anyway, and also want to hone my skills in terms of like being an educator or a teacher? Because for me, like, honestly, for me, it was like, okay, if I'm going to start this YouTube thing, I'm going to hit a 1 million subscriber mark and then I'm going to be rich. This was kind of like, I was like too young and too stupid, maybe, and too naive to think that, first of all, you cannot rely really on the AdSense revenue from Google because it's fluctuating a lot, and it's actually not that much. So you need to open up other revenue streams. But for me, it was probably also like monetary, but also in the sense of I want to give back to the community and also teach people. And do I actually have the skills to teach other people in a language that I'm not familiar with?
Yeah, no, I think is a big, what's the term? It's that when you feel like you're fake in your industry, like, are you smart enough to actually do this? Definitely have
imposter.
Starting off. Exactly. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I think I've gotten over that one finally. But when I first started, it was, you know, I just want to give back and I like teaching. I've been a tutor throughout undergrad. I loved helping people through difficult problems. But then you realize that it is just volunteer work when you first start a YouTube channel. And it really, honestly, still is. Like, I could have made more, I realized, just working at Walmart or as a barista than spending all this time making YouTube videos. Still, to this day, that would have been a more financially viable option to have made more money.
100%. I'm not sure if you want to share your numbers, Phil, by the way, but I can share mine. Like, I think on average per month, I earn like between 75 to 100 euros, which is not a lot, which goes back to the Walmart and the barista.
Yeah. Like, you might spend, 4 hours making a good video if you already know everything about it. But if you have to learn new
Yeah.
stuff about a video, you're investing 6, 8 hours editing time, re-recording things that you thought looked good but didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think right now I haven't posted. I'm reorganizing my channel. We can kind of talk about how to pivot. I think that's a
Yeah.
big part of being in the position as we are. Um, but I think my channel right now is making like $65 a month.
Yeah.
But then at the high point when I was posting every week, I think I almost got to 100. That was kind of like my little short term goal. But yeah, it's total volunteer work. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're making money from YouTube." I'm like, "Yeah, you know what that covers these days? Like 5 frozen pizzas. Like that's like that would be my budget of life, like low quality of living." Excuse me, but yeah, it's there's a lot of misconception about how much you can make because there's always the hope that you're going to scale. I think that's the goal of like, oh, if I can get 1 million viewers on this video, I'll pull in 2 grand or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so hard to hit that level, if we're
Yeah,
being
and then you
honest.
realize at some point that you're not in the finance space, but you're in the education space where they're not spending so much on advertisement. So,
Exactly.
what is the CPM? I'm not on the top of my head. I don't know what the CPM is, or like what you get in terms of revenue, but it's actually RPM, I think, right? Revenue per mil, if I'm not
Yeah, I
mistaken.
think and those things are always changing. And you
But
make a good point though, in education, which is what we're in, it's you get a very young audience on average. I think
yes.
my typical viewer is like between 18 and 30. They tend to be
Hmm.
male. They're from around the globe, India, US, Germany, Brazil, things like that. But they also don't have money to spend. I think this
Correct.
is a huge part of I got into online education early on, and that was kind of my direction because it's like, oh, if I can make $5 per person watching this 55 video series, and that I get 1,000 viewers, that's $5,000. I'm like, this could be huge. It can scale really well, and it's all passive.
Mhm.
That's been my goal from the start. Was like trying to make a business out of this was passive income. But you're looking at a population that's learning that doesn't have disposable income. They are barely getting themselves through school right now. Being young in any country is difficult. Money's not really like a loose thing we're throwing around often. And it's a tough market to make it in, for being honest.
Absolutely. Like, have you also thought about? I think we talked about a little bit about courses, like creating courses, which is then kind of the next step, right? You see, okay, the Google ad revenue is not really like giving me a lot. Maybe I'm going to create some courses. But then I think for me, at least, you quickly realize that especially students as an audience, and I can say that because we were students ourselves, they're a little bit, they think if you spend $30 on a course, you get everything from beginning to
Mhm.
the end, and you get basically everything in one course, which is not the case.
Yeah.
So it's a very tricky audience, and you need a lot of volume as well to sell to
Yeah.
these people
Immense
in order to make
volume.
a
Yeah.
living.
Absolutely. And it needs to be consistent, right? So that means you have to keep up
Correct.
the marketing side of it as well.
Yeah.
Every month, you got to be posting all about this. You have to find new students who are interested. So I've
Correct.
partnered with I haven't hosted my own course, and I could. I actually have one that I've kind of been holding in my back pocket to shoot in the right direction. But the
Hmm.
first course I ever did was actually it was an India-based company called Internshala, and they do job placement as well as online courses, but they handled all the marketing. They took care of hosting the course. So all I did was make a bunch of MP4 videos and then some assignments. I loaded it to a Google Drive, and then they took it down and put it on their site. So that offloaded a lot of the work that I had to do, but it also offloads the revenue, right? So then I forfeit a good portion of that to them because they're managing it, they're maintaining, they're handling student inquiries, they're doing all this stuff. So it's kind of this give and take of how much do you believe in your own reach versus like in India, I'm like they would be better than me, right? I just can't outmarket a massive startup giant in India to start. That's not a market I know. I don't understand. I don't speak the language. It's a whole different world. So that's a big part of the battle too of e-courses and things.
Yeah. And I think it's also like the market is flooded with a lot of courses. Like, how do you want to compete against? Maybe in terms of quality, yes, but then you have to establish your name in the industry
Yeah.
first. And I think, at least for me, I think one of the biggest mistakes was really, yes, you can create these courses and like give back to the community, which is completely fine, but I wouldn't create courses again, especially for an audience that has not the purchase power. So you want to
Yes.
actually aim for business owners maybe, or people who actually have the money.
Yes. So that's two different revenue streams that you bring up there. So I also kind of gave up on the coursework. I say
Yeah.
that, and I just made a new course. But here's why. And this is like the biggest hypocrite when it comes to content. But here's the thing: they flipped the revenue model. So it's this new company out actually in Germany, I think, called E-Level, and they're about to put out some courses. Excuse me, it's early, and their model is free for students. And I was eventually like, okay, that means there's no revenue for me. But they're actually working with more corporate partners, kind of like you were referring to. It's an
Hmm.
indirect revenue model, though, where each student that takes the course, they're advertised to kind of like on YouTube, but the ad revenue, instead of going through YouTube and their whole ad stream and whoever watches it longer, right, you get a set amount per student that goes through the course that comes directly from advertisers in the area. And I'm really curious to see how that one pays off, because now you've made it free for the actual consumer, but you have different stakeholders who are interested in getting those consumers to watch their more specific directed ads. I'm curious if that's going to scale better, right? Almost like a YouTube video. Then it has the potential to be just like a good YouTube video, and that hasn't gone live yet. I'm still waiting, and I'm hoping that might flip the script on the way that students have access to kind of that quality curated content around courses. So that's one of the models I've seen. The other model, as you mentioned, is then going and you can do little seminars around education, right? You offer a MATLAB workshop for $5,000. It's going to be a
Yeah,
3-day
correct.
experience. You're going to, if you get 10 people in there, oh my gosh, you're making 10K or 100, 50K at that point, right? And that's doable too. You just have to have the time and the supporting software and hardware to kind of conduct something like that, which is definitely more doable. And I've thought about that a couple times as well. Doesn't have the scalability. You're tied to your time, but at the end of the day, so is our 9 to 5 jobs. We're tied to time put in typically and your salary that you get out. But ultimately, you have to move towards jobs that are going to pay you more per hour. And if you can make more, if you can make $100 an hour doing your own MATLAB series with a bunch of people online for 3 days versus working at your regular 9 to 5 where you get paid 30 or 40 an hour, then I'd say that's a worthwhile investment. But now again, you have to go out and recruit students. You have to get enough of these
Correct.
companies that are interested. I remember I was approached one time with that, but I was too early on. I only had maybe 10 videos on my channel. And I said, you know what, a little imposter syndrome maybe, but they had these, senior engineers who were looking to get MATLAB training. I think I was 22 at the time. And I said to myself, you're getting into way more than you realize right now with this. So I stepped down from that opportunity, but it's definitely there. I think you've taken advantage maybe, or have you done any of that corporate, or you do the marketing side, but have you done any course or learning based direct with?
Not yet. If I do something, I'll probably go more like to the, I would say, more industrial side. Maybe like business implementation of maybe AI solutions. Like always focus on
Mm,
businesses, not on students, because really the
yeah.
problem is students don't have the purchase power. And I think, let's say if you work on a retainer basis for a company that pays you 2.5 to 5, maybe 8,000 euros or dollars a month, like how many courses do you have to sell to make 5K?
Yeah.
That's a lot. And you have to have the students, and then you have to maintain the students. And also when they have questions, you have to jump in. It's really a full-time job at some point, especially when you have a lot of volume of students. Which kind of brings me to the point in terms of like passive income. Like
Okay.
I still
Very
feel it's
good.
kind of a myth. Like passive income really doesn't exist.
Well,
Especially, I think even if you do real estate, I think there was some calculation. Even if you do real estate, you would need to have properties worth 10 million to make 5K profit roughly a month. And to get to a 10 million like of a portfolio in terms of properties, that's a lot.
and I think it's a lot of moving around where you put the effort. As creators,
Yeah, correct.
our effort is all front loaded, right? So it's not like we just didn't do anything. It's that we set up systems and machines to then hopefully trickle down later. But you still have to
Yeah.
maintain those streams. Now it's not 40 hours a week necessarily to maintain those streams. I have an online course in India, like that one at this point is fairly passive. I've been working them for maybe 2 or 3 years now. Um, and I bill them like every 3 months, and I don't really do a whole lot to keep that. It's just more like relationship management, making sure we're all on good
Hmm.
terms, filing
Yeah.
taxes, all that. Just kind of the fluff around the edges. But it's also not a ton of money. So it's not this dream stream of income that we're all hoping for. And the YouTube channel as well is always kind of like you can make so much. You can make thousands of dollars from a single video if you've got all these viewers. But like Mr. Beast and all these massive YouTubers, Veritasium, like they put in so much effort. They have teams that they're managing. Like they be like it becomes a full-time job. So I'm like, they're not even passive. I think of, oh, if only I was that big and I'm going to get that big. They are like managing empires of content and have people who come up with ideas, writing scripts. I'm like, they have paid employees. This is legit. So I think like there's got to be a sweet spot somewhere
Definitely.
between
Yeah.
like being that big, being able to hit some good. I look at these new YouTubers that come out, and some of them are nailing it, and they're getting like 100K views off the bat. Uh, I'm like, I think they found a sweet spot. Admittedly, I, by no means am I a role model in this space either. Of like, oh, I wish I could do what Phil's doing because he's blowing up. It's like we're still working on it. We are it's an in progress development.
But yeah, but I think it's still fulfilling, especially like even though we're kind of small YouTubers, I think some of the comments are really rewarding in the sense of like, hey, I don't know, because of you, I chose this MATLAB course or chose this master's program, whatever. This is super rewarding though.
Yes, that is, I think, the only reason that I continue doing it.
Yeah.
Because without that interaction, without knowing that you're actually contributing to someone and making their day or helping them out, it's hard to keep the motivation. I take screenshots of those comments, admittedly.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
that's literal gold, I think, in our industry.
I do the
And
same, by the way.
yeah, no, and it means so much. Like people would take the time. I remember one person gave like a $5 tip after a random
Yeah.
video. And he was
Yeah.
like, listen, man, like this was awesome. I really needed this. It means so much that you would put the time together. I'm going, like, it's $5. What's that going to do for me? But the fact that someone made that effort, the fact that people try to comment on videos and they ask questions, and I've answered every single comment on my videos because that's why we do it. We're here for the students. We're here for the learners. We're here for the 40-year-old female, trying to be an entrepreneur, trying to learn to code for the first time. It's like, I'm here to help you. That's exactly why I'm in this.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the risk because I think like when we initially started, obviously you don't even know the outcome. Maybe you do it for 4 years, maybe it flops. So there's a specific risk involved. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's absurd. We take on extreme risk as creators all the time. And it comes in a couple different ways of spending hours editing videos for it to have like 40 views, and then you just feel like worthless.
Yeah, exactly.
It comes in the form of working with partners. That's been a big one for me. You're a small company. You don't have that much revenue. You could never hire an attorney. That just wouldn't even be financially viable. So you're signing agreements with big companies. You don't have any pull in those agreements. Let's be honest. Like you try to negotiate, but they got the same one set up with 20 other people already. They're not going to change it for me. I've made that mistake a couple times trying to fight and losing relationships from that. And then you also have the whole world of like people can just turn around the other way and never pay you. And that's just
Correct.
bad business. But I've got like a burner list of people who've done that to me, and I like stay as far away from those people as possible. I've done it for mechanical engineering consulting work. I was got into that for a little bit. 'Cause I'm an engineer. I can 3D model. Did months of work for this guy. Hired two of my buddies from college to help out with that. He never paid me. We had 8 months to tell me that the product wasn't good, and I was like, dude, you owed me money 4 months ago. We've done the work.
Crazy.
That was a bummer. I developed an entire online course for a startup in a country. I won't name drop them here, but it's like this 50-50 videos I put together for this company. And then they restructured, had reprioritized what the content they wanted. And MATLAB was the course I was developing. They said, we no longer want MATLAB on our platform. Sorry. But nothing in our agreement said that they couldn't just do that. They didn't owe me anything. It was all going to be per revenue. We were arguing on how many cents per viewer I would get, all these things, right? What percentage of revenue. And there's nothing about if we stopped and you did all this work, you would get any money. So I'd spend, like, I'm in grad school trying to develop this course on weekends and in between classes and stuff, and then just got left out to dry after that. So
it's crazy.
What you see online is the success stories. Everyone watches their friend who does van life videos and they made it big. Correct. And they're getting all this affiliate marketing, but you never see what failed and what went wrong and who's struggling and who gave a lot and got very little back from the system. And that's just part of it, So I think a lot of my effort has gone down some drains. And as long as you learn that and know like who to work with and what your requirements are and how to fight more for what you want and get stronger in those arguments and recognizing your value as a creator, that will only do you better as you go forward. But you have to acknowledge that you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to lose big here and there. And you have to just keep your head up and keep going.
Absolutely. There's so many points to cover now that you mentioned, which I really like, Phil. Especially also why it's so important to have a good network of people. Like, for example, I know you. I know that I could trust you, or maybe we do, I don't know, a MATLAB series together, whatever. I know that I could trust you. I could rely on you. But then there's so many black sheeps out there in the educator space, and also like companies who don't pay you, as you said. It's tricky, but I think you have to make the experience to see like it doesn't go well all the time. and people don't see that.
No, and part of it too is, I've wanted to. It's tough, right? So let's say you get screwed by a big company that that's popular.
Yeah.
Do you blast them on your LinkedIn? Like, no, that's bad form,
Yeah.
right? There's no, because we have a brand. You and me, we have brands, right? We have to maintain those things. We have integrity behind it. You don't want to be looking like a crybaby out in the real world, because this happens all the time,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And it's tough because, like, what do you do after that? Who do you go to? Do you it just, and the answer is like, we're global. We've got global partners. We're in different countries right now, and it just sucks. And it's a lot of trust, and it's a lot of belief in who you're going to be working with, and having the conversations to build that integrity and build a bond that is going to last. And working with the MathWorks folks, they're awesome, right? They have me out there. I've never felt better about a partner. I know they got my backs. I've got their backs. Same with you. I'm working with a new company, Blue Robotics, right now. Like, they're awesome. They respond so fast. I'm like, these guys, and when I see that, I put so much more towards those relationships, right? When I don't get a lot, when I get a response in a week, I'm not prioritizing you. I just know off the bat that I'm not highly valued from their perspective. So that's kind of
Yeah.
as much as you give is what you should get back. And it's a golden rule or whatever, right? Treat others as you want to be treated.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for building relationships in business. It's all personable.
Absolutely. I don't have a list now. Like, who should we give a shout out to? Toshi, of course. Like, he's all the guy doing the shitty paperwork for us. Toshi, then obviously Jan, Heather, Hans, and then maybe Paola from at least the Dutch side of MathWorks. Really cool guys to work with. Like, they're super comfy to work with. No problems. Never had an issue on an argument. Okay, let's do it. Like, you have an idea. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. They'll just send me
pretty cool.
Exactly. I was so worried when they reached out originally too. We were getting an email through my YouTube account. I was like, oh shit, like, MathWorks is going to shut me down, man. I'm like, I thought I was competing, right, with their on-ramp series and the beginner tutorials. And like, it was the exact opposite, but I was so worried they're going to be like, oh, you're using our logo without permission and all these things. And, and then eventually through those conversations, I ended up showing up at their campus in Natick, Massachusetts, and getting a tour of the MathWorks facility. I'm like, these guys are awesome. Like, they believe so much, and they want us to, like, echo these voices and be honest. Like, that's one thing I love about them. They're like, do not ever be an echo chamber of just MATLAB content. They're like, we need your honest opinions. If you don't like a feature, tell us. Tell the world. Be open and honest. That's super important for our reputation, our brands, and they're supportive of that. And that, when I say, like, these guys are legit. Like, they know how it works. They know that if we were to just start, saying MATLAB's the best language in the world, we'd start to lose followers, we'd lose integrity, we'd lose honesty, and that destroys creators. It has to all be authentic, and they're so supportive of that, and I love it.
Everyone, like, especially Toshi, they always say, like, you just uploaded raw and unfiltered, especially a podcast. Like, we really don't care. We just can learn from it. Like, unless it's really, really a harsh comment, like, towards MathWorks or something like that, you could take it down. But like, Toshi's always like, yeah, just upload it. We don't care. Yeah. Like, just be real, which I really, really like.
And I got they have the new desktop right now in MATLAB that's coming out. And I'm working on a video for that. But I got on the first call with them, and I said, listen, the first time I used this, it was horrible. Like, the new desktop, I was losing variables somehow from my workspace. I'm like, this was unsustainable. So I just, like, stopped using it. And they're like, that was great that you did that, but, like, you should have let us know. It's like, we would have loved to hear that from you, and had that honest feedback and gotten feedback from your friends, and then sent that our way in a package, and we would have fixed it earlier. And then, so I appreciate the way that they do work. And they understand that they're taking risks as a company, and not anything's perfect. They're working on it. They're figuring it out. But yeah, they got a great, like, they understand it behind the scenes.
But they're definitely smart. There's a few companies, like especially big companies, who want to work with influencers to actually spread the word of whether it's MathWorks or any other company right now. I think they're very smart to understand it. They need influencers and also that unfiltered voice. Because everything else comes off salesy anyway. Like, if they have a webinar or they want to sell something, people are going to be like, okay, I know you want to sell me something. Like, just be honest, So
yeah, well, of course, like, videos any company puts out is going to be the most positive thing. It can do all these features. It can, these bells and whistles, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but show me that one person who used it in the field, and how did that tool work? How did that instrument actually function? Yeah, exactly. Your authenticity, have brands. Have you felt pretty free on that? And like, your LinkedIn, it seems like
100%.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah.
100%.